You want to talk about betrayal? You want to talk about loyalty being thrown in the garbage like yesterday's trash? Well, buckle up, because what Dean Ambrose just did to Paul Heyman might be the most cold-blooded, calculated move we've seen in professional wrestling in the last decade. And here's the kicker: nobody saw it coming. Not the fans, not the locker room, and definitely not Paul Heyman himself. For years, we've watched Paul Heyman play puppet master. We've seen him orchestrate careers, destroy reputations, and manipulate superstars like they were pieces on his personal chessboard. But what happens when the student becomes the master? What happens when the man who was supposed to be the loyal soldier decides he's done taking orders and starts writing his own story? That's exactly what we're witnessing right now, and the wrestling world is absolutely losing its mind. Dean Ambrose didn't just send a message to Paul Heyman. He sent a declaration of war, and trust me, after what he said, after the words that came out of his mouth, there's no going back. This isn't about championships. This isn't about money. This is personal. This is about respect, manipulation, and years of playing mind games finally catching up to the so-called wise man. Let me paint you a picture of what went down, because if you missed it, you missed one of the most explosive moments in recent wrestling history. The tension had been building for months. Ever since Ambrose made his shocking appearance, speculation ran wild about who he'd align with, what his motives were, and where his loyalties truly laid. Paul Heyman, being the opportunist he's always been, saw an opening. He saw a chance to add another weapon to his arsenal, another name to his legendary list of clients. But here's what Heyman didn't count on: Ambrose was playing him the entire time. Quick question for you wrestling fanatics out there: do you think Paul Heyman actually believed he could control someone like Dean Ambrose? Or was he blinded by his own ego? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The messages Ambrose sent weren't some cryptic social media posts that needed decoding. These were direct, brutal, and surgical strikes aimed right at Heyman's credibility. In a series of promos that have gone absolutely viral across both WWE and AEW circles, Ambrose systematically dismantled everything Heyman has built his reputation on. He called out the manipulation. He exposed the lies. He revealed conversations that were supposed to stay private. And most damaging of all, he questioned whether Heyman was ever actually the genius everyone claimed he was, or just a con artist who got lucky. You talk about being a visionary, Paul, Ambrose said in one particularly scathing message. But all I see is a man who's been riding the coattails of actual talent for 30 years. Brock didn't need you. Centimeter Punk didn't need you. Roman didn't need you. And I sure as hell don't need you. The difference between me and them? I'm not going to wait years to tell you the truth. I'm saying it now: you're obsolete. Obsolete. That word hit harder than any chair shot. For a man whose entire identity is wrapped up in being ahead of the curve, being called obsolete is the ultimate insult. And Ambrose knew exactly what he was doing when he chose that word. But it gets even more intense. The betrayal wasn't just verbal. According to multiple sources close to the situation, Ambrose had been feeding Heyman false information for weeks. Strategy sessions that Heyman thought were genuine were actually Ambrose setting traps. Business opportunities that Heyman believed he was orchestrating were actually being undermined behind the scenes. Ambrose played the long game, and Heyman walked right into every single trap. The wrestling community is split right down the middle on this. Half the fans are calling Ambrose a genius, praising him for outsmarting one of the smartest minds in the business. The other half thinks he's crossed a line, that there's a code of respect that even in this cutthroat business shouldn't be violated. But honestly, that's exactly the kind of reaction Ambrose wanted. He doesn't care about being liked. He cares about being remembered. And here's where things get really interesting: the AEW and WWE connection. Because this isn't just happening in one promotion. The implications of this betrayal are rippling across both companies. Heyman has connections everywhere. He's got friends in high places, enemies in low ones, and his influence extends far beyond whatever show he's currently appearing on. When Ambrose declared war on Heyman, he didn't just make one enemy. He made a whole network of them. Here's another question for the comment section: which promotion do you think benefits more from this feud, WWE or AEW? And where do you want to see this play out? The chilling part isn't just what Ambrose said, it's how he said it. Gone was the unhinged lunatic fringe character we used to know. This was a calculated, methodical destroyer. Every word was chosen for maximum impact. Every pause was deliberate. Every facial expression told a story of a man who had been planning this moment for a very long time. This wasn't spontaneous rage. This was premeditated revenge. In one particularly haunting message, Ambrose addressed Heyman directly: "You spent your whole career telling people that you see things others don't, that you have this vision that makes you special. But you know what you didn't see, Paul? You didn't see me coming. You didn't see that every handshake was a lie. Every agreement was temporary. Every moment you thought you had control was just me letting you think you did. Your vision? It's blind. And now the whole world knows it. The psychological warfare on display here is next level. Ambrose isn't just attacking Heyman's professional reputation, he's attacking his identity. For someone like Heyman, whose entire persona is built on being the smartest guy in the room, this is devastating. It's one thing to lose a client. It's another thing entirely to be publicly humiliated and exposed as someone who got played at their own game. Social media has been absolutely on fire since these messages dropped. The hashtags are trending. The memes are brutal. But more importantly, legitimate industry veterans are weighing in. Former Heyman clients are being asked for their reactions. Promoters are being questioned about whether they still want to work with someone who just got exposed so thoroughly. The damage to Heyman's brand might be irreparable, and Ambrose is just getting started. What makes this even more compelling is the real-life history between these two. They've crossed paths multiple times over the years in different capacities. There were rumors of conversations about potential partnerships that never materialized. There were instances where Heyman advocated for certain creative directions that Ambrose openly opposed. This isn't manufactured heat for television. There are legitimate layers of real tension underneath this storyline, and that authenticity is what makes it so captivating. The wrestling business has always thrived on betrayal storylines. It's literally the foundation of some of the greatest angles in history. But what separates the good betrayals from the legendary ones is believability and stakes. Do we believe the betrayal is real? Do the stakes feel significant? In this case, the answer to both questions is an emphatic yes. Let me ask you this, who do you think is the biggest victim of betrayal in wrestling history? Is Dean Ambrose's move on Paul Heyman anywhere close to that level? Let's debate in the comments. Heyman's response, or lack thereof, has been equally telling. The man who's never at a loss for words has been relatively quiet. A few cryptic tweets, a short statement through official channels, but nothing close to the verbal evisceration he's known for. Some interpret this as Heyman being genuinely shaken. Others think he's strategically waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. Knowing Heyman, the latter is probably true. This man has survived every era of wrestling for a reason, is a survivor, an adapter, and a counterpuncher. But here's the million-dollar question, can Heyman recover from this? His entire value proposition has been his ability to see around corners, to be 10 steps ahead of everyone else. Ambrose just proved that not only was Heyman not ahead, he was being led around like a puppet. That's a credibility hit that's hard to bounce back from, even for someone with Heyman's track record. The locker room reactions have been fascinating to watch unfold. Some wrestlers are publicly supporting Ambrose, praising him for having the guts to stand up to someone with Heyman's influence. Others are staying carefully neutral, not wanting to pick sides in what could become an industry-defining conflict. And then there are those who are quietly supporting Heyman, either out of loyalty or out of fear of what happens if they don't. This situation also raises bigger questions about loyalty in professional wrestling. In an industry where allegiances shift like sand and today's friend is tomorrow's enemy, what does loyalty even mean anymore? Ambrose's betrayal of Heyman could be seen as just business, a calculated move to advance his own career and status. But it could also be seen as something deeper, a rejection of the old power structures and the manipulative politics that have defined wrestling for decades. The timing of all this couldn't be more perfect from a business standpoint. Wrestling is in one of its most competitive periods in history. Multiple promotions are fighting for attention, talent, and legitimacy. A story this explosive, involving figures this significant, with implications this far-reaching, it's the kind of content that drives subscriptions, sells tickets, and dominates conversation. And let's be real about what Ambrose accomplished here. He didn't just betray Paul Heyman. He humiliated him. He exposed him. He turned Heyman's greatest strength, his perception as a master manipulator, into his greatest weakness. That's not just betrayal. That's destruction. That's career-altering, legacy-questioning stuff. Final question before we wrap this up. Do you think this is a work or a shoot? How much of this is real tension versus storyline? Give me your honest opinion in the comments because this one has everyone guessing. The aftermath of these chilling messages is still unfolding. Every day brings new developments, new reactions, new layers to this increasingly complex situation. Wrestling thrives on moments that make people feel something real, and right now, whether you love Ambrose or hate him, whether you feel sorry for Heyman or think he got what he deserved, you're feeling something. And that's what makes this not just good wrestling, but great storytelling. Dean Ambrose has thrown down the gauntlet. Paul Heyman's legacy is on the line. The wrestling world is watching, waiting to see what happens next. Because if there's one thing we know for certain, this is far from over. This is just the beginning of what could be the most personal, most brutal, most career-defining feud in modern wrestling history. And honestly, we can't look away.